Mark Steyn, author, blogger, SteynOnline.com, and subject of a Canadian Islamic Congress-initiated Human Rights Tribunal hearing on a passage in a Mark Steyn article in Maclean's magazine, as you know, was denied a speaking engagement at the London Convention Centre. Mark will speak at a different London venue tomorrow on freedom of speech. And he joins us on the Roy Green Show on the Chorus Radio Network. Mark, you're at London's Centennial Hall tomorrow, booted from the London Convention Centre. I almost expected the head of the LCC, the London Convention Centre, to stand before a microphone and say something like, Mark Steyn's opinions don't belong at the London Convention Centre. They're really between him and his psychiatrist and publicist.
Yes, there's a lot of that. It's interesting what you have to do to be considered extreme and controversial these days. Cat Stevens, who now goes under the name of Yusuf Islam, was a featured performer at the Jon Stewart rally to restore sanity in Washington yesterday. And Cat Stevens is a man who, when the Salman Rushdie fatwa was announced, said that he was all in favor of killing Salman Rushdie, and if he had the opportunity, he wouldn't be averse to doing it himself. So this is a man who explicitly supports a kind of Islamic mob hit on a named individual, but he's perfectly respectable, and he's standing up with Jon Stewart and all the cool kids. He's there with Tony Bennett and Sheryl Crow, and they all love him in Washington, but I, who have never made the career-enhancing move of issuing an explicit death threat against a named individual, am too controversial for the London Convention Centre. So I'm at Centennial Hall, and I'm being followed by the Trailer Park Boys and then the Rita McNeil Christmas show. So I'm thrilled for the first time in my life to be the warm-up act for the Rita McNeil Christmas show.
Yeah, that is a great show.
Yeah, it is.
It's a great show.
And in a way, I'm glad of all the Islamic enforcers in London and the craven squishes who run the London Convention Centre for giving me the opportunity to appear on the same flyer as Rita McNeil. I thank them for it, and I hope we'll have a grand turnout in London tomorrow. But I'm happy to be in Centennial Hall.
Now, there's some talk about whether or not members of the Muslim community in the London area actually did contact the London Convention Centre management and object to your presence, or whether they took that on themselves. Does it matter to you whether members of the London area Muslim community objected to you speaking at the Convention Centre or not?
No, actually that doesn't matter so much, because my whole view of this now is that the real problem here is the preemptive cringe in large parts of the Western world. It does appear to be the case. I mean, their statements, the official statements of the woman who runs the London Convention Centre, are all contradictory and over the place. But she did say that she was worried that there might be protesters there who objected to the event. So in other words, she's saying, well, if there are protesters who are going to attempt to disrupt the event, the best way to prevent the disruption of the event is to cancel it ahead of time. And in that sense, I think it's the similar approach to what happened with Juan Williams at NPR, to Geert Wilders, the Dutch MP in the Netherlands, to cases in Scandinavia and the United Kingdom and all over the place. The preemptive cringe of Western liberals who refuse to stand up for core Western principles like freedom of speech. I don't have as low a view of the Canadian citizenry as state enforcers like Laurie De Silva do. I think Canadian citizens are quite capable of making up their own mind about who they want to go and hear speak, what they want to read, what they want to listen to on the radio, what they want to watch on TV. And I think we'd all do just fine if these pathetic state enforcers would just get the hell out of the way.
You talk about the state enforcers, and let's get at the freedom of expression situation that is constitutionally enshrined in Canada. Although a senior investigator for the Canadian Human Rights Commission didn't know that, apparently. He, during a hearing, was asked what he thought of freedom of speech, and he said not very much, adding that freedom of speech is an American concept. I interviewed Jennifer Lynch,
right,
the chief of the Canadian Human Rights Commission, and I asked her about that statement by her investigator. Ms. Lynch's response essentially was to point out that her investigator was working hard and under stress. What did that have to do with anything?
No. And you know, what's fascinating to me is that Jennifer Lynch actually has is the source of that poor employee of hers confusion, because Jennifer Lynch's attitude is that freedom of speech is just one of the great menu items in the groaning Canadian salad bar of human rights, and along with, for example, the Ontario Human Rights Commission's right to a transsexual labiaplasty, among other more recent rights. And when you go along to the salad bar, they may be out of some items like freedom of speech, but there'll be plenty of other new, novel, exciting rights that you can enjoy in their stead. And Jennifer Lynch has been the one who has been explicitly talking about this kind of balancing act of rights. And I say to Commissar Lynch, nuts to that. This goes back to Magna Carta. The idea of Magna Carta is that the people restrain the sovereign, that the sovereign is restrained in what he can do to his subjects. That is the Magna Carta conception of human rights. We have now completely inverted it so that large numbers of people in this country think that human rights are somehow in the gift of the Crown, and that the Crown's appointees like Jennifer Lynch graciously confer them on their subjects, who would otherwise be too mean and worthless and stupid to know the bountiful human rights that the sovereign has graciously conferred on them. This is a perversion of human rights that actually shames Canada. And Jennifer Lynch, in her heart, knows that. And that's why she can't give you a straight answer on these questions.
Tomorrow in London, your speech is Head for the Hills. Why everything in your world is doomed, as in the U.S. government running trillion-dollar deficits, and governments lurching into our lives and directing us daily, and removing the right for Canadians to direct their own lives. By the way, rights previous generations shed blood to establish and then defend.
Right.
You know what, Mark, I feel like the ventriloquist's dummy some days.
Right. Well, I mean, just to go back to what you were talking about a couple of minutes ago, when you were talking about MPs' expenses and then talking about their pension plans, I don't think a member of Parliament should have a pension plan, because I don't think a legislator should be a career. I don't think we should have career legislators. I think we should have citizen legislators who serve for a time in Parliament or on a municipal council and then return to being a farmer or running a hardware store or having a small software business or whatever it is they do. And it's the hardware store or the small software business that provides their pension, not the Canadian state via the Canadian taxpayers. And the big question over the Western world is who do we stick it to? We've run out of people to stick the unsustainable cost of big government to. America is sliding off a cliff. Within the next 5 years, the interest payments on the U.S. multi-trillion-dollar debt, the interest payments to the government of China will be covering the entire cost of the Chinese military. There is no precedent for this in human history, in which one superpower essentially funds the militarization of its successor. And the problem here is that as America slides off the cliff, it will drag a lot of other people with it, including Western Europe. The tragedy, in a way, is that Canada was one of the countries least affected by the global turndown in 2008, but simply because of the reality of the situation is likely to get dragged off that cliff along with the United States and Western Europe unless we change things really